Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Josh Does Coding. In today's tutorial, we're going to continue on with our advanced enemy spawner. Today we'll be looking at spawning different types of enemies as opposed to just one enemy over and over. If you haven't followed along with the two previous videos, I highly recommend you check those out now before continuing with this. So to get started, we're going to have to create two new enemies that we want to spawn in. So this is going to be just how we set up the enemy in episode 1. You're going to right click in the content browser, you're going to select blueprint class, and we are going to select a character. Now remember, all blueprint classes should start with the prefix BP underscore. And then you can just call it whatever you want. I'll call this tank enemy. And then I'm going to do it again, blueprint class, character, BP underscore, and I'll go with ranged enemy. Now we can just go ahead and open up both of these blueprints. And you'll just, like in episode 1, want to come over here and add a skeletal mesh. You'll want it to be a different skeletal mesh as your basic enemy so that you can see the difference when they're being spawned in. So for my ranged enemy, I'll just go with this tutorial third person, whatever it stands for. And again, we'll just rotate it 90 degrees so that it's facing forward, or negative 90 degrees. Then I'll come over to the tank enemy now, and once again, I'll just give it a different mesh. Give it this SK mannequin, and once again, rotate it negative 90 degrees, let it face forward. You should now have 3 enemies, your basic enemy, your ranged enemy, and your tank enemy, all with different meshes. Once you've done that, we are good to get on to the actual spawning portion of this tutorial. So, what you're going to want to do is open up BP enemy spawner, and you will see that this is what we currently have. Or depending on which method you went with last video, you might have this to spawn your actors at a random point around the spawner. Either one works. It will not affect the implementation of what we are working on today. And sorry, I'm just deleting some stuff. I was messing around with this before we started recording. So what we're going to want to do is create a new variable. So just over here on the left, new variable. And we are going to call this enemies to spawn. Over here, we're going to want to select and search for character. Just come to character here and choose class reference, the second option. Do not choose object reference, choose class reference. Once you selected your character as a class reference, you'll see this little purple face here. What you're going to want to do is right click on that and it will turn into this grid. What we just did is turn this into an array. Now an array is a way to store multiple values of something, in this case multiple characters. So once that is done, you can compile and save. And then once you click on your enemies to spawn variable, over here in the details panel, you'll now see our default value and enemies to spawn. You can click on this little plus arrow here to add an element, and you can see we now have an index. In this index, you can click where it says none, and we'll be able to select one of our characters. So here we'll select basic enemy. Then we'll add another array element once again by clicking this little plus, and this will be our ranged enemy. Then one more time, we'll click this plus, and we'll go with tank enemy. We now have 3 indexes, each representing a different enemy. Now remember, when you're coding, you always start at 0. So the first index is index 0. The second index is index 1. And the third index is index 2. So now we have this array. What can we do with it? Well, we can drag it into an event graph. And we can drag out and we can say, get a copy. And now what this will do is get us a copy of the class reference of the corresponding index. So right now, set to 0. So it'll get us index 0, which is our basic enemy. Now what we can do is we can hook this up to our pawn class up here in our spawn AI from class. So now we're saying, well, whatever number this is the type of enemy we want to spawn. So now there's a few ways we can decide how we want to randomize between this. You can either just have a complete randomization, where you get a number between 0 and 2, and whatever happens is what you spawn. That would be an equal spawn rate. So you have a 33% chance of spawning either one of these. Or you could say, get a random number between 0 and 100, and if it's, less than 50, spawn a basic enemy. If it's greater than 50 and less than 75, spawn a ranged enemy. And if it's greater than 75, spawn a tank enemy. So we'll go ahead and do the slightly more complicated percentage-based spawn rate here, just so everyone knows how. So what we'll start off by doing is getting a random integer in range. And we'll go from 0 to 100. Now we'll say if this return value is, we'll go with less than 50. We'll have to make some space here. What we'll do is drag out of here and add in a branch. Now you'll have 3 lines connecting to the spawn AI from class to decide which random point it's spawning at. Or again, if you did this method, you'll just have this 1 line. You'll want to connect your lines to this branch instead of spawn AI from class. Perfect. So now what we're saying is if this random integer, and I'll just move this away again just to create some more space for us so it's not so crowded and it's easy to read. If this random integer is greater than 50, or sorry, if it's less than 50, we'll spawn AI from class. And it'll just be like this, and we'll do 0. So if it's less than 50, we want to spawn our basic enemy. Now, we can come here and we can say, basically saying, else if you're a C++ programmer, else if this random value is greater than or equal to 50, and we'll say if this random value is less than 75, so again, just drag out, and we'll say from this little Boolean output, we'll say and. We'll get an and Boolean. So if this random value is both greater than or equal to 50 and less than 75, we will spawn in. You can just copy this spawn AI from class. We will spawn it in, except this time we'll give it number 1, which is our ranged enemy. Or, yes, our ranged enemy. Now we're going to do this one more time. We'll say branch. And now we'll say if this value is greater than or equal to 75, if that's true, we'll once again just copy this. It will say spawn in number 2, which is our tank enemy. So one more time to recap. What we're doing is we're getting a random number between 0 and 100. If that random integer is less than 50, meaning it has a 49% chance to be, then we'll spawn our basic enemy. If it's greater than or equal to 50 and less than 75, which will give it a 25% chance, if both of those are true, we'll spawn in the ranged enemy. If it's greater than 75, of course the max is 100, which means there's also a 25% chance, we'll spawn in number 2, which is our tank enemy. So once that is done, you can compile, save. We can come on out here, and once again, we can just run our project, and you'll see as the enemy starts spawning in, you'll have a 50% chance of spawning your basic enemy. Here you can see, and there you go. We now have a ranged enemy spawning. Now if we wait another 5 seconds, we have a basic enemy spawning. And if we wait another 5 seconds, we get another basic enemy. And if we wait again, we will get some sort of enemy. We get our basic enemy. I'm waiting for a tank enemy to spawn, but as you know from last video, the odds are always against us. But as you can see, it is randomizing between the different types of enemies, with basic enemies being the most common, and ranged enemies and tank enemies having a 25% chance each. So that will wrap up the video for today on how to get random enemies spawning. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below. And if you have any requests for future tutorials, be sure to leave them in the comments down below as well. With that said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and good luck with your games.